look around you. The vast majority of people, the 99%, they're completely trapped. And you know what? They aren't trapped by a lack of talent, a bad economy, or even bad luck. They are trapped by chronic overthinking, endless hesitation, and just a devastating lack of focus. Now, if you're tuning into this explainer today, I know you're looking for the exit door. You want to break out of that cycle, right? So we really got to ask the hard question here. Why do 99% of people stay stuck in the exact same place year after year? Well, the answer is kind of uncomfortable. It's because they willingly surrender their life's ambition for cheap dopamine. I'm talking about the endless scrolling, the binge watching, the constant refreshing of feeds, just looking for a hit. They let hesitation completely paralyze their actions, and they choose the soft, easy comfort of the couch over the friction you actually need for real growth. And this brings us to the ultimate culprit, keeping you stuck: brain rot. It's this incredibly destructive combination of mindless social media scrolling and the severe mental fatigue that follows right after. Because think about it, you scroll because you're tired, right? But that endless scrolling literally fries your dopamine receptors. It causes a profound mental fatigue that absolutely kills your ambition. You basically exhaust your brain before you've done a single productive thing all day. To escape this trap, we need 4 key shifts. Number 1, mastering the mind game and decisions. Number 2, beating information overload. Number 3, brutally managing distractions. And 4, building blinders. As you'll see here, we are going to follow a precise structural blueprint today. We're decoding the exact framework you need to systematically shift your daily actions from that 99% mindset straight into the 1% reality. And listen, there's absolutely no fluff here, just the raw execution needed to completely transform how you operate. All right, let's dive right into Section 1, Mind Game and Decisions, taking immediate control. Escaping the average majority? It actually doesn't start with your bank account or a fancy business plan. It starts entirely in your head. Enter the 5 to 10 second rule. Think about the last time you just stared at a blank screen or a massive, daunting task list. You felt that heavy paralysis, right? Well, this rule is the physical trigger to break that paralysis. Step 1 is simple. Make an immediate decision. Don't sit around waiting for motivation, because honestly, motivation is a total myth. Discipline is the only way out. When a high-impact task needs doing, you have exactly 5 to 10 seconds to move on it. And that brings us to step 2, overcome the relaxation state. See, the 5 to 10 second rule forces you to physically break your inertia before your brain even has time to talk you out of the work. You snap out of lazy relaxation and force yourself straight into execution. Now, every single time you use this rule, you are basically doing a rep for your willpower muscle. You are engaging in serious willpower development. And here is the massive payoff. Willpower development equals instant clarity. When you eliminate that internal negotiation, you know, that little voice asking if you actually feel like working today, the brain fog just lifts. You no longer sit around wondering what you should do next. The clarity is instant, and it leads directly to faster, far more aggressive action. Moving on to Section 2, information overload. It's time to stop consuming and start doing. In our modern world, information is everywhere. But for the 99%, it's turned into a giant trap. The 99% hoards information. They buy another course, they read another book, they watch another tutorial, and they just consume until they have full-blown brain rot, always waiting to feel perfectly ready. But the core entrepreneurship rule of the 1% prioritizes absolute speed. A person who launches a messy, imperfect project today is always going to beat the guy who spends 6 months planning the perfect launch. Speed of implementation beats perfect information every single time, no question. And this leads us to an incredibly powerful, albeit counterintuitive concept: the power of starting ignorance. I mean, why does analysis paralysis even happen in the first place? It happens because we look at the whole mountain instead of just focusing on the first step. Think about it. If you knew exactly how hard a massive project was going to be, like all the hurdles, the late nights, the inevitable failures, you might never actually start. There is incredible power in starting with a degree of ignorance. It's a superpower that protects your momentum. You completely bypass analysis paralysis because, hey, you don't need to know step 10 to confidently take step 1. All right, Section 3, managing distractions, killing the regret trap. Let's talk about a really deadly cycle called the regret trap. This is what destroys most entrepreneurs. Here's how the cycle works. You get distracted on YouTube or social media for an hour. Then, boom, wasted time guilt hits you. You feel like a complete failure for not working. But instead of, getting back to work,
That very guilt fuels what we call time gap procrastination. You feel so bad about wasting the last hour that you literally write off the entire rest of the afternoon because the day just feels ruined. It is a vicious, self-fulfilling cycle of failure.
So how do we completely destroy the regret trap? With highly actionable tactical defenses. First up, limiting via deadlines. You set hard, non-negotiable limits for your tasks to artificially create urgency. Second, and honestly, this one is massive, immediate task resumption. Look, top performers are not immune to distractions. They're human. The difference is they have a vastly faster recovery time. The second they catch themselves drifting, they don't shame themselves, they don't wallow in guilt, they snap back to the keyboard in milliseconds. They've trained the muscle of immediate task resumption to completely bypass the regret trap. Finally, Section 4, building blinders, engineering your environment. Here's the truth. You cannot rely on willpower alone to fight off every single distraction. Willpower is a finite resource. You run out of it. You have to build an environment where success is the default path of least resistance. You put blinders on. This means curating every single input in your life. You surround yourself with curated books that sharpen your mind and educational podcasts that teach your new mental models. You strictly surround yourself with growth-oriented people because you inevitably become who you hang out with. You consume only intentional content, completely shutting off that brain rot we talked about. And you engage in growth-focused travel to force new perspectives. When you curate your environment this intensely, it acts as a massive force multiplier for your growth. You literally leave no room for mediocrity. But building that environment is really only half of it. Maintaining it requires the daily audit. Think of this as your rigorous nightly mirror check. Every single day, you audit your actions for top 1% goal alignment. Ask yourself, did your actions today actually move the needle, or did you just play business? You integrate daily inspiration activities to keep the fire burning. And critically, you check if you are pushing out of your comfort zone. If you were entirely comfortable today, actually, scratch that. If you were even mostly comfortable today, you lost the day. You were operating exactly like the 99%. To sum it all up, escaping the majority isn't magic. It's a ruthless, calculated system. It comes down to these 4 fundamental pillars. Mastering the mindset game with the 5 to 10 second rule. Enforcing information control to beat analysis paralysis. Practicing ruthless distraction management to kill the regret trap. And engineering an environment backed by a non-negotiable daily audit. We've laid out the entire blueprint for you today. You now know exactly how the 1% operate. But simply watching this explainer means absolutely nothing without speed of implementation. So here's my challenge to you. Pick just one of these 4 pillars right now. Are you going to close this tab, fall back into the relaxation state, and let that 99% mindset win? Or are you going to implement the 5 to 10 second rule immediately and get to work? Will your actions for the rest of today align with the 1%? The decision is yours. Now get to work.